Welcome, everybody. We are so excited to have Dr. Shane Creado on, and just think of this as Sleep Week. Dr. Creado is a psychiatrist. He's a sleep specialist. He works in our clinic in Chicago, north of Chicago. We love him. He and I collaborate on lots of patients. He's super smart, very articulate, and his new book, Peak Sleep Performance, the cutting edge sleep science that will guarantee a competitive advantage. Shane, welcome to the Brain Warriors Way podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to say, Daniel, that you inspired me to start writing books. When I first joined Amen Clinics, you said you got to write a book on sleep. And so it's finally here. So thank you for this opportunity.
Right. And you said, well, there's so many books on sleep. What do I have that's different? You're also a sports medicine psychiatrist.
Oh, that's interesting.
And, we went to an NBA game together and we talked to one of my favorite NBA players, Kyle Korver, and just how important sleep is to performance, but it's just not athletic performance. It's work performance. It's life performance. And whenever anybody asks me about my routine during the pandemic, I always start the night before and how I get ready for bed.
Mm-hmm.
That is so true. And it goes from everything from sports performance to work performance to brain health, which is what we do here at Amen Clinics. And as you rightly said in the Bright Minds protocol, sleep is a pillar of brain health. And if we don't optimize our sleep, our brain health really can't get to the next level of functioning. So this book will hopefully focus on sleep, not just for athletes, but for everybody. This book has all the tools needed for everyone to have access to the skills, sleep skills used by elite athletes that everyone can implement today.
So let's start by talking about what hurts our sleep. What is going on in our society?
Especially right now. Like, I think we need to really discuss about what's happening during the pandemic and how that's disrupting people's
You mean like
sleep.
Chronic fear?
Right.
This thing, I call it the global amygdala hijacking.
Right.
We have a global amygdala hijacking.
And I think it's really important to really address like the current situation, and things are going to be different going forward.
Absolutely. So we know that there's already been a sleep pandemic in a way because insomnia has been so widespread. Add to it anxiety, stress, fear, things that are out of control. It's going to magnify the problem because sleeping is the most vulnerable thing we do. And if we're in danger mode, we've seen that on our brain scans as well. If we are in danger mode, if we're anxious, then it's just, we're not going to be able to fall asleep. Our brain will not let us sleep because we are hardwired to protect ourselves. And that means staying awake or being light sleepers, which will in turn sabotage our ability to deal with stress once again, which sets up a vicious cycle. A lot of people are talking about their pandemic nightmares. And there's a difference between nightmare disorder, which is severe, and general nightmares. In fact, studies have shown that nightmares can actually be protective. They prime the brain to respond to terrifying situations. And they've seen people respond quicker to strange, scary situations when they have had nightmares on and off.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if you're in danger mode, your brain tends to do things in its sleep, like dreams that you experience during the day. So you'll have scarier dreams, you'll have nightmares. If you're anxious, you won't get enough sleep. So your brain will compensate by getting more dream sleep, which will actually fuel more nightmares. So yes, people are staying home.
I'm sorry, does anger affect your sleep the same way as anxiety, or is it different?
It's very similar because anxiety or danger mode can result in us going to fight or flight mode. And so that fight mode is the anger component to that danger response.
That's so interesting. Because I see people so angry right now. And so I just wonder how that's...
So as a way to manage the stress, people are smoking pot. We had a hysterical interaction with my dad before he died, where he got into my
The
mother's
best last conversation ever recorded in
hemp
history.
gummies. He got into her hemp gummies.
She didn't tell anyone she was taking hemp gummies,
And
but you didn't know you're only supposed to
but
have
people
one.
are resorting to marijuana. They're resorting to hemp gummies. They're resorting to alcohol or sugar before bed. How do those things impact sleep?
Those things will adversely affect your sleep because the sugar crash comes along eventually. Now, in my athlete population, if it's the night before a big game, we can talk about foods like tryptophan, foods filled with GABA, high carb foods. Slow carbs can help you sleep better. But if you're eating sugar throughout the day, if you're in danger mode, if you're using marijuana, that's going to set you up for failure in the long term because those are really going to interfere with your rhythms, your biological rhythms. The way it's really simple when you break it down in terms of the evidence-based strategies to optimize your sleep. You need to synchronize your circadian rhythm or the melatonin and cortisol balance, and you need to synchronize your sleep need, so your sleep thirst or your homeostatic drive. Once they're in sync, you'll be able to fall asleep when you want to, wake up when you want to. But because people are resorting to marijuana throughout the day, gummies, they're going to feel hungrier, they're going to have the munchies, they're going to resort to unhealthy foods, they're not exercising, structure and routines have fallen off. That'll disrupt your sleep. So daytime routines are as important as nighttime routines. People talk about sleep hygiene, having a to-do or a worry list a few hours before bedtime, having a fixed wake-up time. Those are all well and good, but if you are doing things to sabotage your rhythms during the day, it will impact your nighttime sleep.
So let's talk about wine for 1 second, because people always talk about this, how I have a glass of wine to sleep at night. So, but I noticed that if I have just a tiny bit of wine on occasion, it doesn't really disrupt my sleep very much. I have it earlier than, before I go to bed, not right before bed. But if I if I have like a larger glass of wine, I don't drink very much, but that definitely disrupts my sleep. So how much is there an amount that, like, can people drink? Because people are going to ask, they always ask, how much can I have? So
I've never prescribed alcohol to anyone before.
All right, let me rephrase it. How much can I get away with?
Well, people say wine has some benefits because of the resveratrol in the skin of grapes. So you could always have resveratrol to help you with those benefits.
I don't think that's why they're really having it.
Exactly. So I would say if someone wants to have an occasional glass of wine, then that's okay if you don't have any liver or other severe brain health issues. But you need to, as you rightly said, have it a few hours before bedtime.
Right. Okay.
Sure, a nightcap will help you fall asleep easier because it's a depressant to your nervous system. But a few hours later, when your brain is going through a withdrawal since it's out of your system, your brain will wake up in the middle of the night. So a lot of people say, but it helps me fall asleep and I don't know why I'm waking up at 3 a.m. It's precisely the alcohol that can be contributing there.
Right.
Also, alcohol
and
can
it's a
worsen
diuretic.
sleep apnea. It is a diuretic, so you're going to wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. It'll be harder for you to fall asleep because now your brain is not just awake, it's also going through a mild anxiety in a way in the brain's receptors in terms of withdrawing from that alcohol. And alcohol can worsen sleep apnea. It makes your muscles relax.
Right. And you made a really good point about getting up and going to the bathroom. I even noticed that, like, I changed my supplement routine because I take a ton of supplements. I was taking them right before bed. Well, that meant I had to drink a ton of water right before bed. And that was really disrupting my sleep. So just changing some of those things can be helpful too, I think.
Yes.
Well, Shane helped us create our supplement, Put Me to Sleep, which we're really excited about at Brain MD. But before we have to finish our first podcast, let's talk about a couple of other sleep disruptors. Like, what do you think about caffeine?
Caffeine will disrupt your sleep because it's a stimulant, so it's going to keep your mind alert. But it doesn't mean that you're going to get away with it in the long term because your sleep debt will catch up with you. That's one thing. The other thing is you might need more and more caffeine because tolerance may build up. You may start off with a couple of cups in the morning every day. And before you know it, the next month, you may need 3 or 4 cups just to keep going. So if you feel you need a stimulant like caffeine to keep you up, you're obviously not getting sufficient sleep. I've said this before. If each one's brain needs different amounts of sleep. If you're getting 6 hours of sleep, but your brain needs 8 hours of sleep, then you're running on fumes because every week you lose 14 hours of sleep. So I'm not a fan of caffeine. There's other ways to be more alert, like better sleep, better quantity and quality of sleep.
I have a question. So is there it seems like some people are more affected by cutting their sleep short, even if it's by a small amount. I know if I sleep a half hour less, just a half hour less, I need like 8.5 hours. But if I sleep like a half an hour less than I know before I'm ready to wake up, I feel sick. It seems like sleep affects people differently. You'll just like sludge through it. But I literally feel almost like there's something wrong with me. I'm coming down with something. Is that common?
Yes, it's more common than you'd think. And people don't realize it's directly connected to their sleep. Well, I'm crabby all the time, or I wake up with a morning headache. Sometimes I don't want to talk to my wife in the morning. I'm a little slow getting started. And those are all little clues to me that they're not getting the optimal sleep that their brain needs. So you'll pick up on this. Other people who have inflammatory conditions or elite sports people, they know the difference. In fact, the 30-minute sleep extension studies have been done at Stanford. And they found that even 30 minutes more sleep, even if the athlete is getting what they think is enough sleep, you can boost your basketball shooting accuracy by 9.2%.
So it's not in my head.
It's all
it's all in my head.
When we come back, we're going to talk more about the things that disrupt your sleep, but also the things that help your sleep. Stay with us.
Welcome back. We are still here with Dr. Shane Creado, psychiatrist, sleep expert, and also sports medicine expert, which I did not realize. That's so awesome. And he works in our Chicago clinic. And I just have to say, Dr. Creado, you're one of my favorites because I love this topic and I love your new book. So Peak Sleep Performance, the cutting edge sleep science that will guarantee a competitive advantage. And that's your new book. And I'm super excited about it because this is such a major topic for so many people. I know for women, because I get bombarded by questions about this constantly, and I direct them to things we've done with you. But I think probably for a lot of people, it's just a major problem, and especially right now during a pandemic. So I love this. So I'm happy we're talking about this.
So how do people know if they're having trouble sleeping? People can go to sleep or they wake up in the middle of the night, they know. But what about, I wear a Fitbit, and what about sleep trackers and sleep testing?
So people may not think they have a sleep problem. They say, I go to sleep okay, I wake up okay, maybe I'll sleep a little longer on the weekends. But if I had to tell them that your work performance could improve 50%, your concentration can be boosted by 10 to 30%, that your speed, your power output, if you're working out in the gym, could improve. If you can slash your risk of relapse from inflammation by half, if you could do all those things with more sleep, then that's the way to go. So how do you know? Well, you need to track your sleep. As you said, there's various sleep trackers. I always trust the good old-fashioned sleep diary. They're free to download paper versions on the American Academy of Sleep Medicine website. There are several apps that have good sleep diaries you could fill out. The sleep diary simply means that you fill it out in the morning, not in the middle of the night to be accurate, but fill out what time you went to sleep or you think you went to sleep versus what time you actually got into bed, how many times you woke up, how long you think you woke up for, what time you woke up, what time you took your meds and supplements, and if you nap during the day. And that'll give us a really good measure in terms of how much sleep you're getting, whether you're having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep or waking up too early. Now, if you do have a fitness tracker, like the Apple Watch or Fitbit or Whoop, then sure, you can combine that data with your sleep diaries. Because it really depends on how those devices are calibrated, how sensitive they are. And the manufacturer determines how sensitive each device is. So they're not the most sensitive, and I would go with a combination of sleep diaries and your fitness tracker if you want to use it. But if you're the kind of person to lie in bed with very light sleep, like the twilight zone some people experience, the device may say you're asleep, but you feel miserable when you wake up and say, I only got 2 hours of sleep, but it says I got 6 hours. Mm-hmm. Or if you have restless legs or you act out your dreams occasionally, the device might think you're awake. So it might underestimate or overestimate the amount of sleep you get. And of course, during the day, you can use something like the Stanford Sleepiness Scale. It's a download. You basically write out how sleepy you are every 3 hours or so during the day, maybe at 9 a.m., 12 p.m., 3 p.m., 6 p.m., and 9 p.m. So during the nighttime, you have a good sense of how you slept. In the daytime, you know how sleepy you've been. And if you are sleepy during the day, you might want to extend your sleep, maybe 30 minutes more at the beginning of the night. So getting to bed maybe 30 minutes earlier and keeping your wake-up time fixed so we can really synchronize your circadian rhythms and then monitor your sleepiness. That's the quantity of sleep. But also there are qualitative issues. If your legs bounce around at night, if you act out your dreams, if your partner wants to suffocate you with their pillow because you snore. So all these things.
Why are you laughing?
I was just trying to protect you from COVID. I wasn't trying to support you.
I think you were trying to kill me.
So in the book, I clearly read
tiredness.
That just made
just worn out. It was like, let me.
Just cracked me up.
So those are qualitative things: the sleep disorders, medications, chronic pain, PTSD, and mental health issues affect the quality of your sleep as well. So if you have a good quantity of sleep, if you've extended your sleep, but you're still feeling sleepy or tired during the day, then you probably need an evaluation at Amen Clinics to screen you for other disorders that damage your sleep.
But you know what happened, Shane, is especially now you're doing telemedicine with your family doc, and you're like, I'm anxious, I'm worried, I can't sleep. And the first thing is you get a prescription for Ambien or Lunesta or Restoril or whatever,
or marijuana.
Sleep or marijuana.
Yeah.
And no one's done a proper assessment, and they put you on something you cannot stop. So when my mom had trouble sleeping, 20 years ago, one of her family doctors gave her Ambien, and she became attached to it, which just horrifies me. Yes. But, from Ambien to hemp gummies. And
I've heard a number of people say, and some people don't realize it's medication doing it to them. They become extremely depressed. They behave very differently during the day, tearful. They did that to me. Like it made me, I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I'm like, oh my God, I just started taking Ambien. This was many years ago. And so I was like, I can't take it. And that's when I learned.
Innocuous.
Yeah.
But what's your take on it?
Those
You're
medicines,
a sleep doctor and a psychiatrist. So good thing, not so good.
I don't like medications for sleep unless it's the right medicine for the right duration, for the right person in the right context. So the gold standard for insomnia is figuring out the underlying factors, which is what we do at Amen Clinics every single day. Figure out what sabotages your sleep and then correct it. So medicines like Ambien and other sleep medicines have a black box warning because you can act out you can do things, you can sleepwalk, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. There's medical legal issues in some cases when people do things that they were unaware of when they were asleep. Medications for anxiety like clonazepam, the benzodiazepines can worsen sleep apnea. So if you have sleep apnea, it's going to worsen the quality of your sleep and your brain basically suffocates every time you're asleep. If you're on an SSRI like Zoloft or Prozac, it can cause you to act out your dreams more, and it can also worsen restless leg syndrome. Mm-hmm. Medicines like Seroquel and other antipsychotic meds that are used to improve your sleep can cause weight gain and worsen sleep apnea. So unless it's a very specific medicine for a specific duration, I'm not a fan of medications for sleep. And they can be addictive and they can have really bad side effects, which is why we collaborated on designing a really quality sleep supplement. Even melatonin in very high doses, it can have an opposite effect and wake you up or can make
I've heard
you
people say that.
groggy.
Which is why we use a low dose, because it's more physiologically
I love our
appropriate. What about things like Tylenol, PM, Benadryl? And now we know people who are taking medications like Benadryl have a higher incidence of dementia.
And I want to just throw this in there. You scanned me after I had surgery, which number one, the anesthesia, but I was having trouble sleeping after the surgery because of pain and other things. I didn't want to take painkillers. So I'm thinking, oh, Advil PM is fine. And then I also take it when we would travel. And when I got my scan, I was like, whoa, what just happened to my scan? It was not good. So it freaked me out.
So again, Advil PM, Tylenol PM, they basically are used for their side effect of sedation because it acts on histamine. But blocking your histamine receptors, also they end up blocking up acetylcholine, which results in increased risk of dementia. But blocking histamine can again worsen restless leg syndrome. Again, I'm not a fan of those medicines because there are such good supplements available. There are such easy strategies to implement to calm your brain down. Meditation, a nice wind down routine, a fixed wake up time. Those things can help you go a long way in improving your sleep without using medicines that can have really bad effects on your brain in the long term.
I love that. One question I have is, how does dreaming, not so much nightmares, but like vivid, weird dreams, does that affect your sleep? Because I know I've heard so many people say that during this time, even in our own home, the kids, everybody, they're having these weird, wacky, vivid dreams during this time. And I'm just curious, does dreaming help your sleep because you're processing, or does it hurt it somehow?
That's a really great question. Dream sleep is really important to consolidate your memories because dreams are generated in the hippocampus, the same area of the brain we know in SPECT imaging and neurobiology that helps you with new learning, memory consolidation, emotional stability. Dream sleep is vital in terms of the normal sleep cycle. Nightmares occasionally are okay. It depends on how you interpret them. If you act out your dreams regularly, it's a problem called REM behavior disorder, when your muscles are supposed to be paralyzed. But if you're waking up out of your dreams often, it might indicate an underlying anxiety disorder or PTSD disorder that needs to be handled adequately if you have to get better sleep. Because when your brain is in danger mode, you're not going to be able to fall asleep better.
When
if you're waking up tired.
We're going to talk about tips for you to have better sleep. We should also talk a little bit for our first responders about people who have shift work and how to optimize sleep for that. And then our last one, we're going to talk about, what do your dreams mean? Stay with us. Welcome back. We are here with Dr. Shane Creado, who is a psychiatrist, a sleep disorder specialist, the author of Peak Sleep Performance. Shane, where can they get your book?
Amazon and Kindle. So if they just do a simple search on Amazon for Peak Sleep Performance for Athletes by Shane Creado, it'll pop up right away.
Awesome. I highly recommended. Dr. Creado also helped us create our supplement to support healthy sleep. Put Me to Sleep is the name of the supplement.
Emily, our 10-year-old, she just loves it. She went through a really, really stressful time. And so to help her get back on track, she used it and she just loves that stuff. So. And
it tastes great. It's actually chewable. And, it's 1 to 4 chewables at night. All right. So I promised them practical tips, including for shift work. How can people get the best sleep. And, oh, by the way, Dr. Creado also has a course on Amen University called Overcoming Insomnia. I actually recommended it to a patient yesterday.
So great.
It's really great. So if you find this is an issue, my dad died a couple of weeks ago, and I've been talking about grief. And with grief, I always say, fix sleep first. So if you're going through grief, fix sleep first. And, that's when a lot of people end up being hooked on Ambien or Restoril or Lunesta or Seroquel, the ones you talked about. When people go through stressful times, whether it's you lose your dad or you're in the middle of a pandemic, what are the tips to really get people on track?
All right. First of all, I'm really sorry for your loss, Daniel. It was a beautiful funeral analogy. And at these times, a lot of people are losing their loved ones, and it can really disrupt your sleep because you're grieving, you're in danger mode. There's a survival guilt component. And I've always told my patients during this entire pandemic, use this opportunity to optimize your sleep. Use this to be a little selfish for yourself, because you need to protect yourself and your brain health and your sleep if you have to be a good relative and partner and be there for your kids and support your other loved ones in moments of need. We know that sleep deprivation will make you more irritable, make you more emotionally vulnerable. Even one night of sleep deprivation has triggered manic and hypomanic episodes in some patients. So if you anchor your sleep, if you structure your days, you can schedule time to grieve and grieve well without causing you to end up in the danger zone. And we do know that sleep deprivation is directly connected to increased suicide risk as well. 90% of people with depression report sleep problems. So yes, that is tied in with sleep. And we can address the sleep without simply throwing Ambien or Trazodone at people. We need to address it the way we do mental health. Underlying factors, the right kinds of therapy, CBT for insomnia, like is the basis of overcoming insomnia. What can we do right now? Structure our days and our nights. Have a fixed wake-up time as much as we can, 7 days a week. Now we may have more free time, so let's figure out how much sleep our brain really needs. Choose a wake-up time 7 days a week, and then lock it in. So if you feel like you want to wake up at 6 a.m. every day and you want to go to bed at 10 p.m., do that. If you're still feeling sleepy during the day, or if you feel you need catch-up sleep or naps during the day, you might want to extend that sleep. Maybe go to bed at 9:30 p.m. Have a nice wind-down routine. Your brain can't simply switch on and off like a light bulb. So a nice wind-down routine, a calm warming bath, meditation, saunas, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Have your supplements maybe 30 minutes before your desired bedtime. Avoid using the bed for anything other than sleep and sex. And once you have those routines and your brain is still busy, there are specific strategies to calm your busy brain down. Your to-do list, your worry list, relaxation, mindfulness. There's some really good apps there. A lot of people make the mistake of trying too hard to fall asleep, and that's really going to set you up for failure, because trying involves waking your brain up. So consider your sleep time at night, every night, to be your mini vacation. I'm going on vacation in half an hour. Let me wind down and calm down before I go on my sleep vacation. Those are some important skills to use. And of course, there's other thought strategies based on whether you have PTSD-associated busy brain, or whether you're a catastrophist or an overthinker. So there's lots of amazing evidence-based strategies to help you with those unhealthy thoughts.
So you brought up PTSD, and there's a medicine that has been found to be useful for nightmares. And I had a patient recently that I prescribed that for him, praises it. Would you talk about that for a second from a sleep doctor perspective? So this is different. It's a blood pressure medicine. It's not addictive. It's not like Ambien or Restoril or Xanax, things that you develop tolerance and get withdrawal from?
So prazosin, it was originally designed as a blood pressure medicine, and it reduces the blood pressure because it works on the sympathetic nervous system, the danger response nervous system, and calms it down. So it makes perfect sense that it could be helpful for nightmares. Now, it's been used for nightmares related to specific traumas, but some people use it for people who just have nightmare disorder in general. Because it calms the sympathetic nervous system down, it makes sense that it would reduce the frequency and intensity of nightmares. Other ways to reduce nightmares, though, as I said, if your brain is sleep deprived, it's going to quickly drink as much dream sleep as it can get. So actually extending the amount of sleep you're getting and the quality of your sleep by dealing with things like restless legs or sleep apnea will actually cause you to have well-balanced non-dream and dream sleep rather than excessive dream sleep. That means less nightmares. Also calming your brain down, because your brain goes through the same cycles in dream sleep that it does when you're awake. So if you're calm or dealing with stress adequately during the course of the day, you're setting yourself up for success in terms of less nightmares. I know that prazosin has been used for nightmares. I also use a medicine called clonidine for nightmares. It was used in kids who had been abused and traumatized during the Pol Pot regime in Cambodia. And it also helps reduce the blood pressure, reduce the sympathetic nervous system response. And I've seen some really good benefits in people, not just for the nightmares, but also the hyperarousal, the danger mode, looking over your shoulder all the time. And it makes sense, because if you calm down your nervous system during the day, your brain is less likely to repeat those negative reactions while you're asleep.
That's so helpful. You've mentioned sleep apnea a couple of times. The common symptoms: you snore loudly, you stop breathing at night, you're chronically tired during the day. It increases the risk of obesity and depression. How would someone know if they had it? And then what's the best way to assess it?
So sleep apnea is extremely common, and I'm really glad you're bringing this up, because there's many different kinds of sleep apneas. The most common one we think of is obstructive sleep apnea, where airway closes off, your tongue falls back, and there's less oxygen to the brain. So yes, it can result in more depression, tiredness, fatigue, poor concentration problems, memory problems, dementia, heart attacks, strokes. It's a really deadly disease. Now, you may feel you're getting 8 or 9 hours of sleep, but you still wake up really tired and sleepy. That may be a clue. A dry mouth may be a clue. Morning headaches, especially in the front part of your head, may be a clue. Impotence, low testosterone levels, aches and pains in the daytime, more inflammation are all linked directly to sleep apnea. We mentioned shift workers. Shift work has been designated a probable carcinogen by the WHO because it's directly related to increased risk of heart attacks. You know, with daylight saving time, after we lose that hour of sleep, there's 21% more heart attacks the next day.
Oh, it's miserable.
People are dying. Yeah. So if you have any of the symptoms, just feeling sluggish, lethargic, and you try and get more sleep and you feel even worse, like you've been hit by a truck, it's time to get an evaluation for sleep apnea. It's quick, simple, easy. You can get a home study done. It's always covered by insurance. And they tell you how many times you stop breathing at night and what position you were in. And then it's not just everyone deserves CPAP. It depends on the severity of the sleep apnea and the position. So if you have really bad sleep apnea while you're on your back, but not while you're on your side, you may not need CPAP. If you're morbidly obese, losing weight will improve your sleep apnea. There are mouth devices. So I know people are scared to get tested for sleep apnea because they don't want CPAP, but there's lots of other strategies that we can use to help people with their sleep apnea.
Great. When we come back, we're going to talk more about sleep, but specifically, was Freud completely off base when he talked about the interpretation of dreams? We're here with Dr. Shane Creado, psychiatrist, sleep disorder specialist, Amen Clinic physician who we adore. He is the host of our course, Overcoming Insomnia, at Amen University. Go to amenuniversity.com, and also the author of Peak Sleep Performance, the cutting edge sleep science that will guarantee a competitive advantage. Stay with us.
Welcome back. We're on our 4th episode with Dr. Shane Creado. Your strategies are just so helpful. I've never met another person that knows so much about sleep. And I've just enjoyed so much listening to you in our previous podcasts and our course on Amen University with all you have to teach people about sleep, because there's just so much more than just identifying, your room is too bright. And I mean, all those things are important. It's just way more complicated. But actually with simple solutions, simpler than people think. So I'm excited about it.
So what about Freud and dreams? What's the latest thinking on why we dream, and is it the royal road to the unconscious?
No pressure there for me, right, Daniel? So Freud did have a lot of good points when it came to dreams. Unfortunately, he didn't have the benefit of SPECT imaging and a vast knowledge of neurobiology and neurophysiology. He said that our dreams are composite based on what we've experienced the previous day or weeks, what we're actually experiencing when we're asleep, and what we're anticipating the next day. So if you have a wind blowing on you through an open window, you might experience something similar that gets incorporated into your dreamscape. Well, he had a few things right there, actually, because when they've done experiments on rats traversing mazes, and they've had little sensors on their brains, when rats are in dream sleep, the same areas get activated. We also know that the areas, the hippocampus, which create the dreamscape, the topography and the timescape of dreams, we know that those areas help us think, memorize, retain memories as well. And so it makes perfect sense that the dream sleep is crucial for consolidating your memories. Now, we know that it's always known that, great, okay, you need to sleep after you've studied something to retain it. But it's also crucial that you get sleep prior to studying, because your brain is then like a dry sponge, as we've seen in a book written on sleep, Why We Sleep. So we need sleep, quality sleep, before we study as well as after we study. It retains information. The interesting thing is there have been some studies when it comes to PTSD in terms of actually forcing people to undergo sleep deprivation. So someone's had a traumatic event and they force them to stay awake for that cycle rather than sleep for the 6 hours or whatever. And they've had less intense symptoms of PTSD if they do develop PTSD. So actually, they now feel that sleep after you've had a traumatic event probably consolidates those traumatic memories and can set you up for failure and worse PTSD symptoms. Oh,
that's so interesting. I didn't know that. Because one of the treatments for depression is sleep deprivation. Is they actually reset. Did you know that? Joe Wu.
I think that sounds crazy.
Our friend Joe Wu, who's a psychiatrist and an imager at UCI, he published a number of studies on using, I guess it's chronotherapy, where they'll sleep deprive them for a night and then sort of try to reset their circadian rhythm. And it's found to work for depression. And it may be why the early morning awakening happens, because your brain's trying to reset itself and it's not good. But I never heard after a trauma to not go to sleep so that you don't consolidate.
That's super interesting.
Memory. Wow.
Yes. Sleep deprivation to help reset the biological rhythms in depression may be beneficial. People who have hypersomnia or excessive sleepiness associated with their depression. But if they have bipolar depression, sleep depriving people might put them at risk of triggering a manic or hypomanic event. Or if they have seizure disorders, it's probably a bad idea to sleep deprive someone because it might trigger a seizure. So in certain cases, I definitely see how that could be beneficial, but we've got to be
Interesting that there is an actual clinical use for sleep deprivation, because it's used in torture too. I'm just saying. So
All right, back to dreams. So Louis Gottschalk was the chairman of the Department of Psychiatry at UCI for a long time, and he was my neighbor when I was in college. And I used to love talking to him about dreams. And he said dreams typically contain three things. Something, a current event, something from the past, and a wish or a fear. And if you can understand those three things, you can help interpret dreams. So in your training at the University of Wisconsin, what were they teaching you about dream interpretation?
Yes, so we had weekly sessions with a psychoanalyst, Jim Gustafson, who was originally from Harvard Medical School, and he's been at the department for almost 40 years now, or more than 40 years at the University of Wisconsin. And we just talk about our patients and talk about dream analysis in the context of Jung and Freud and how it all makes sense to us, not just in terms of psychoanalysis, but dream interpretation and the neurobiology of it all. So I was getting interested in neurobiology back then. I saw the amazing work you were doing, and I was just hoping we could marry those two together. So yes, the way I interpret dreams with patients is understanding their past, their context. Because if you do Google search, oh, what does it mean for me to be flying in a dream? That's really not going to cut it for you, because it is your subjective experience. It is your subconscious mind bringing to conscious awareness something that's important for you. And that's where things get so interesting, because I've had some great breakthroughs with certain patients on understanding their dreams and how it might fuel them and help guide them along their journey in this life.
That's so good. We just adore you so much. If you're listening to this podcast or watching it, what's the one idea that you got from Dr. Creado?
So,
take a picture of it, of us, write down the idea, post it on social media,
share it.
tag us, share it, and then pick up a copy of Dr. Creado's book or download it. Peak Sleep Performance, the cutting edge sleep science that will guarantee a competitive advantage. You can also make an appointment with Dr. Creado if you go to amenclinics.com, call the call center, say I have a sleep problem. And virtually all of our docs now are virtual. And so no matter where you are in the world, you can have an appointment with Dr. Creado. The clinics are open. We're scanning. So you could be by any of the 8 clinics and still have Dr. Creado as your doctor.
And what I love is with your book is there's a lot of books on sleep, and you've heard a lot of the same stuff over and over, but there are so many surprising things. As somebody who's actually really tried to do a lot of personal research on it, I was very surprised by some of the stuff I learned. So it's really interesting.
Naps may actually be good for your brain if you know what you're doing.
Right.
So I just want to thank you both for this amazing opportunity. I do feel that we at Amen Clinics have the most comprehensive sleep evaluation protocols combined with SPECT imaging and the Put Me to Sleep supplement, the Overcoming Insomnia video series. I think we have an amazing system in place to help people concurrently with their sleep and their mental health needs, which is so crucial, especially today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
If you're enjoying the Brain Warriors Way podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, feel free to give us a review or 5-star rating, as that helps others find the podcast.
If you're considering coming to Amen Clinics or trying some of the brain healthy supplements from BrainMD, you can use the code podcast10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com or a 10% discount on all supplements at brainmdhealth.com. For more information, give us a call at 855-978-1363.